The chamber was vast, built from black stone and silver metal that shone under the pale lights above. It was the heart of the alien council, a place where no human had ever stood before. Hundreds of tall alien figures filled the room, their strange eyes glowing in the dim light. They whispered among themselves in sharp voices that echoed through the cold air. At the center of the chamber, a single human stood, calm and silent, while every alien around him stared. The human was not chained, yet guards surrounded him with weapons ready. His suit was plain, dark, and made for survival, not for war. He did not bow. He did not tremble. He only stood there, shoulders straight, his face calm as if none of this mattered. The aliens did not understand. They had seen prisoners beg, scream, or collapse in fear, but this human gave them nothing. That silence was louder than any scream. The council leader raised a long hand, and the whispers stopped. His voice echoed across the chamber. This creature is human. Primitive, violent, reckless. Yet it has walked into our space and broken our laws. We will know its mind before judgment. Another figure stepped forward. Tall, thin, with silver skin and a crown of wires that pulsed with blue light. This was the Telepath, the one who could enter minds with a single touch. The crowd stirred, curious. To them, humans were only small creatures, barely evolved. A telepath could tear open their thoughts with ease. They would know every secret, every weakness, every fear. The telepath walked slowly toward the human. Her steps were steady, her expression unreadable. The human turned his eyes to her, calm, almost bored, as if he already knew what would happen. She stopped in front of him, so close she could feel his breath. Her voice was cold. "You cannot hide. I will see everything." The human did not reply. She lifted her hand and pressed her fingers against his forehead. A pulse of blue energy sparked at the touch. The chamber grew silent, so silent that even the hum of the lights above seemed to vanish. Every alien leaned forward, waiting. Inside her mind, the telepath fell into the human's thoughts. At first she expected the usual, the simple images of a primitive creature: hunger, fear, survival. She prepared herself for chaos, for small emotions and weak memories. But what came was nothing like she expected. Darkness. Not empty darkness, but heavy, endless, full of pressure. A storm without sound. She moved deeper, and then she saw fire. Cities burning. Machines of war tearing across battlefields. Human voices shouting, screaming, yet never giving up. She tried to pull back, but the mind dragged her deeper. She saw humans climbing mountains, crossing oceans, fighting beasts larger than themselves. She saw endless wars where humans stood against creatures stronger, faster, more powerful, and still refused to kneel. Her own breath caught. She had entered thousands of minds before, but never had she felt this. Humans did not think like prey. They thought like predators. She stumbled in the visions, falling into one memory after another. Soldiers in the mud, bleeding but rising again. Explorers lost in frozen wastelands, refusing to surrender. Mothers holding children in burning cities, whispering promises of survival. She felt every heartbeat, every fire, every blade of will. The storm grew louder. She tried to scream but could not. She tried to escape, but the human's mind did not let her go. Instead, it showed her more. Stars exploding. Great wars fought in silence of space. A small fragile world rising again and again no matter how many times it was broken. She saw death, but she also saw something worse, defiance. The human had not spoken a word, yet his mind shouted louder than any voice she had ever heard. She felt her strength break. Her knees trembled. Her hand shook against his skin. Blue light sparked around her head, flashing across the chamber. The aliens gasped. They had never seen a telepath struggle like this. Then it happened. The telepath screamed. Her voice tore through the chamber, sharp and raw, and she fell backward, breaking the connection. The blue light shattered around her like glass. She collapsed onto the floor, clutching her head, trembling like a child. Her eyes were wide with terror, her breath fast and shallow. The human only stood there, calm, silent, untouched. A wave of whispers spread across the chamber. Aliens pointed, their voices sharp with confusion and fear. This had never happened before. A telepath was a master of minds. No prisoner had ever resisted, let alone broken one. But here, before them, one human had made the impossible real. Guards rushed to the telepath's side. She shook her head, her lips trembling, trying to speak. Not possible, she whispered. Endless, their minds are endless. The council leader leaned forward, his voice low and heavy. What did you see? The telepath pressed her hands over her ears as if the memory itself screamed inside her head. Darkness, fire, war without end. They fight even when broken. They rise when they should fall. They are not prey. Her body shook. Do not touch them. Do not enter their minds. They are. She could not finish. Her words broke into sobs. The chamber froze. Every alien stared at the human. The silence was heavy, thicker than stone. The human did not move. He did not smile, but in his eyes was something sharp, something dangerous, something that made the strongest of them take a step back without meaning to. Finally, the human spoke for the first time. His voice was calm, steady, quiet, but it cut through the silence like a blade. You should not have looked. That single sentence made the chamber colder. The aliens shivered. The telepath whimpered, shaking her head again and again. The guards looked at each other. None dared to approach the human. None wanted to touch him. The silence stretched longer, broken only by the telepath's weak gasps for air. In the crowd, one alien whispered, "If one mind can do this, what will their armies do?" Another whispered, "We thought them weak." A third said nothing but quietly stepped back, his eyes never leaving the human. The human lowered his gaze and closed his eyes again. He did not need chains, did not need weapons. His silence was stronger than any armor. He had shown them a glimpse, only a glimpse, and it was enough to break their strongest. The council leader sat frozen, torn between anger and fear. He wanted to call the guards, to order the human's death, but his voice would not rise. Somewhere inside, he already knew the truth. Killing this one would not end the threat. It would only awaken something worse. The human opened his eyes again, and though his face was calm, his gaze was heavy. You brought me here to see my mind. Now you have seen it. Do not ask again. Every word echoed. Not loud, not shouted, but they carried weight. Even the walls seemed to remember them. The telepath, still on the floor, whispered one last time. Endless, endless. Then her body went limp, her strength gone. The chamber remained silent, no one daring to speak, as the human stood tall, waiting. What had they truly seen inside his mind? No one could answer. Not even the telepath who had touched it. The chamber remained tense long after the telepath fell. Her body was lifted by the guards, carried away like broken glass, and still no one dared to speak too loudly. The human stood alone in the center, calm, silent, his breath steady as if nothing had happened. To the aliens watching, his stillness was more frightening than violence. Another telepath stepped forward. This one was larger, his head crowned with ridges of crystal that glowed faintly. He looked down at the human with a sharp gaze. His voice carried across the hall, louder than the first. She was weak. Her mind faltered. But I am stronger. This creature will not resist me. The crowd stirred, unsure. The memory of the woman's scream was still fresh. Yet curiosity pulled them closer. They wanted to see if another could succeed where one had failed. The second telepath raised his hand and walked toward the human. The human lifted his eyes and met his stare. For a moment, neither moved. The silence was heavy, as if even the air feared to breathe. The alien touched the human's head. At once, the connection was made. Sparks flashed around his crown of crystals. His eyes closed, his mouth set in a thin line of control. He pushed deeper into the human's mind. At first, he found resistance, like walking into a wall of stone. He forced himself harder. His power should have crushed any barrier, but instead the wall broke open, and he fell inside. The visions hit him at once. Firestorms over ruined cities. Oceans boiling under strange suns. Armies of humans standing in the ashes, holding weapons, holding each other, refusing to bow. He saw blood and smoke, but he also saw something worse, endless determination. They did not fear death. They embraced it, turned it into fuel, rose again and again when others would have fallen. The alien's breath caught. His chest tightened. He felt pain, not his own, but from the countless memories of human history. Soldiers screaming but still rising. Explorers frozen in the void of space but leaving messages of hope. Families starving yet sharing the last of their food to keep someone else alive. Every image burned like fire into his mind. He tried to pull away, but the human's mind wrapped around him like chains. He tried to fight, but the chains grew tighter, pulling him deeper. He saw more, machines of iron rolling across battlefields, great ships sailing into unknown stars, men and women standing together against enemies stronger than themselves. He saw failure, defeat, collapse, but always followed by one thing, humans standing back up. Blood trickled from the telepath's nose. His jaw tightened. He fought to hold control, but his body trembled. The chamber filled with whispers. The aliens could see his struggle. No one dared move closer. Then his eyes shot open. A scream ripped from his throat, raw and violent, echoing through the chamber. His knees buckled. He tore his hand away from the human, stumbling backward, clutching at his head. His crystal crown dimmed, flickering weakly. He fell to the floor, gasping. The human did not move. His eyes were calm, his face expressionless. The second telepath's voice broke in pieces as he tried to speak. Not prey, predators. His body shook with each word. They do not fear death. They walk with it. They invite it. The guards looked at each other, fear in their eyes. The council members leaned back in their seats, uncertain whether to believe him or deny what they saw with their own eyes. Two telepaths broken by a single human. The human lifted his head and spoke softly, his words carrying across the room. You wanted to know our minds. Now you know. Stop looking. You will not like what you find. The words were not shouted, but they landed heavier than any command. The second telepath collapsed onto the ground, shaking. Blood ran from his ears. His body gave in to exhaustion, and he lay still. The whispers in the chamber turned to panic. Some voices demanded the human's death, others begged to release him, and still more argued that such strength could be used, controlled, weaponized. No one could agree. But all of them looked at the human with the same fear. He stood alone, silent, and that silence was more powerful than anything they could understand. The chamber no longer felt like a place of order. It was filled with fear, whispers, and the weight of something none of them had expected. Two telepaths had fallen, both of them known for their strength, their mastery, their certainty. Now both lay broken, their minds scarred by what they had touched. The human stood silent, still calm, still untouchable. Some of the council members shouted for guards to act. Chain it. Destroy it. No creature should resist us. Their voices shook, betraying their fear. Others spoke lower, their tones sharper, more careful. If one of them can do this, then what about the rest? What if we face their armies? The guards hesitated. No one wanted to step closer to the human. He was not holding a weapon. He was not moving. Yet he was more dangerous than anyone they had ever faced. From the far side of the chamber, another figure stood. Taller, broader, his presence heavy. His skin gleamed like polished stone, and his voice cut through the chaos. Enough. The whispers stopped. This was the elder telepath, the oldest of their order, one who had touched the minds of kings, soldiers, even entire fleets. He was said to be unbreakable, a mind so vast that no one had ever shaken it. His steps echoed as he walked forward, slow, steady, each one carrying authority. The crowd parted, giving him space. He stopped before the human. His eyes narrowed, studying the silent figure. You, he said, his voice deep. You hide behind silence. You frighten the weak. But I am not weak. I will see what you truly are. The human's eyes lifted, calm and steady. He gave no answer. The elder reached out his hand. The touch landed on the human's temple. A surge of energy filled the air, brighter and stronger than before. Sparks raced across the elder's skin. The connection was made. Inside, the elder walked into the human's mind. At first, he stood firm, his strength holding, his mind wide and prepared. He expected resistance, but he was ready. He pushed forward, forcing the walls open. Then the visions began. He saw a battlefield, but not one, thousands. Wars across centuries. Steel and fire, arrows and bombs, swords and guns. He saw humans fighting beasts of metal, giants of stone, monsters of flesh. They fought and bled and fell, but each time more rose in their place. He saw empires collapse, yet humans did not vanish. They built again, stronger, harder, refusing to give up. The elder gritted his teeth, pushing deeper. His mind was strong. He would not break. But the storm rose. He saw oceans crossed by fragile ships, explorers sailing with nothing but stars to guide them. He saw men and women climbing mountains that reached the sky, their hands bleeding, their bodies weak, but still they climbed. He saw children starving, yet sharing their last food with each other. He saw endless struggle, endless survival. And then, he saw something worse. He saw humans standing against impossible odds, not just fighting, but smiling. He saw their laughter in the face of death. He saw their stubborn hope, their belief that even when the universe tried to crush them, they would rise again. For the first time in his long life, the elder felt his strength waver. He pushed harder, desperate to control what he was seeing, to bend it, to break it, but the human's mind did not bend. It did not break. It only showed him more. Wars yet to come. Stars waiting to be claimed. Shadows where humans walked, carrying fire in their hearts. The elder's eyes widened. His body trembled. His mouth opened in a silent gasp. He could feel it, something endless, something greater than he could contain. His crystal crown cracked. Blood trickled down his face. His knees bent, his hands shaking. He fought to hold on, but the human's mind was not letting him go. The crowd watched in horror. The greatest telepath they had ever known was falling. Then the elder let out a deep, broken scream. His body shook violently, his hand tearing away from the human's head. He staggered back, collapsing onto his knees. His breathing was heavy, ragged, his face pale. The human stood unmoved, eyes steady, expression calm. The elder lifted his head, his voice shaking. Their minds are not like ours. They do not see endings. They see only the fight. They see only survival. They cannot be broken. He collapsed to the floor, his strength gone. The silence that followed was heavier than before. No one moved. No one spoke. Every alien in the chamber stared at the human, and in that silence, a truth spread among them. This was no prisoner. This was something else entirely. The elder telepath lay on the cold floor, his body weak and trembling. No one moved to help him. The chamber was silent except for his labored breathing. The council members stared, their eyes wide, their hands tight against their seats. Never before had they seen such a thing. 3 of their strongest minds, broken by one human who had not spoken more than a few words. The human stood in the center of the chamber, calm, still, untouched. His chest rose and fell slowly. His hands rested at his sides. He looked more like a statue than a man, yet every alien felt his presence press against them like a weight. None of them could explain it. He had done nothing, yet it felt as though he had conquered them already. One of the council members finally found his voice. "Speak," he shouted. "Explain what you are. Explain what you hide." His words echoed across the chamber, but the human did not reply. His silence was sharper than any blade. The council member's voice cracked as he shouted again. "Answer, or we will tear the truth from you." The human's eyes slowly turned toward him. Just a glance, no more. Yet the alien flinched, his words dying in his throat. He looked away, unable to hold the human's gaze. Another council member whispered, her voice shaking. "What if he is not alone? What if all of them are like this?" The words spread fear through the chamber. None wanted to believe it, yet none could deny what they had seen. The guards gripped their weapons tighter, but none moved forward. They remembered the screams, the collapse of the telepaths, the broken crown of the elder. If touching the human's mind could do that, what would happen if they tried to strike his body? None wanted to be the first. The human finally spoke. His voice was calm, soft, but each word was heavy. "You wanted to see my mind. You forced yourselves inside. Now you know. You saw what you were not ready to face. The words cut deep. The council leader shifted in his seat, his long fingers curling against the armrest. You threaten us, he said, though his voice trembled slightly. The human's eyes returned to him. No. I warned you. There is a difference. The silence stretched again. The aliens shifted uncomfortably, their fear growing. They could not understand. They had ruled so many worlds, broken so many species. Yet here was one man, standing alone, unchained, and their strongest could not touch him. The elder telepath raised his head weakly, his voice hoarse. Do not touch him again. Do not touch any of them. Their minds are endless. They see war as we see water. They see death as we see sleep. You cannot understand. His head dropped back against the floor, too weak to say more. The words echoed in the minds of all who heard them. Endless. War. Death. Survival. Words that tasted like iron and ash. The human stood silent once more, his face calm, but his presence filled the chamber. The council had wanted to test him, to strip him bare with their power, but instead they had stripped themselves, revealing their fear. He closed his eyes, as if he were tired of the game. His voice came one last time, quiet but sharp. I did not come here to fight. But if you make me, you will not forget the cost. The chamber froze. None dared to answer. None dared to move. The weight of his words pressed on them like chains. The human lowered his head again, and in that moment he looked less like a prisoner and more like a judge, silent and patient, waiting for them to decide their fate. The silence did not last. Fear always needed a voice, and soon the chamber was full of them. Council members rose from their seats, shouting over one another, their voices echoing against the high walls. Some pointed at the human, demanding his execution. He is too dangerous. End him now before he destroys us all. Others shouted back, their tones sharp but uncertain. You saw what happened. If he can break our strongest, imagine what his kind could do if we make them enemies. We must be careful. We must learn more. The human stood still while they argued, his expression unreadable. His silence only made their voices louder. The guards shifted uneasily, their weapons heavy in their hands, but still none dared to act. The memory of the broken telepaths was too fresh. One counselor slammed his staff against the floor, calling for order. His voice carried above the others. We are divided, but we must decide. Do we destroy him? Do we release him? Or do we use him? The last word hung in the air like smoke. The idea spread quickly, whispered from one alien to another. Use him. Control him. If one human could resist like this, what could an army do under their command? The human's eyes opened slowly. He looked at them, his gaze sharp but calm. You cannot use what you do not understand. The words silenced them for a moment. Then another counselor spoke, her voice quieter, more cautious. Perhaps they could be allies. If they are this strong, then standing with them would make us powerful beyond measure. The suggestion was met with more shouting. Some laughed, calling it madness. Others nodded, their fear turning into calculation. The chamber was no longer united. It was breaking apart, lines drawn between fear, greed, and hope. At the back of the hall, a shadowed group of advisors whispered together, their eyes never leaving the human. Their voices were too low to hear, but their intent was clear. They were already planning, already thinking of ways to control, to bend, to weaponize. The council leader finally stood, his tall form casting a shadow over the chamber. His voice was cold, commanding. Enough. We will not destroy him. Not yet. There is more to learn. But we will not release him either. He will remain here, under guard, until we decide. The guards looked at each other, uncertain, but none moved closer. The human tilted his head slightly, almost amused. His voice came soft but steady. You think you hold me. You do not. You only hold your fear. The words cut deep. Some counselors looked away, others clenched their fists, but none could deny the truth of it. The elder telepath, still weak on the floor, forced himself to speak again. His voice was broken, but his words were clear. You cannot cage what you do not see. You cannot bind what does not break. You are playing with fire. The council leader ignored him, but the warning lingered in every ear. The human closed his eyes again, calm, silent, as the chamber fell into uneasy quiet. The decision had been made, but no one believed it would hold for long. Too many voices wanted too many things. Too much fear. Too much greed. The human waited. He could feel it. The real test had not yet begun. The chamber had grown restless. The arguments of the council still echoed in the air, even as the human stood like a statue in the center. The guards watched him with wary eyes, unsure if they were protecting him or protecting themselves from him. The tension was thick, every whisper heavy with fear. Then, from the far side of the room, a weak cry rose. The first telepath, the one who had collapsed at the very beginning, stirred on the stretcher where the healers had left her. Her body shook as though touched by cold. Her hands clawed at the air, and her voice trembled. No, no more, do not make me see again. The healers tried to calm her, but she pushed them aside, her wide eyes fixed on the human standing in the middle. She struggled to sit, her body frail, her strength not yet returned, but her fear was strong enough to carry her voice. They do not think like us, she cried, her words sharp and broken. You cannot understand what I saw. Endless fire. Endless war. And yet, they survive. Always they survive. The chamber fell silent, every alien turning to listen. She lifted a trembling hand, pointing at the human. I thought I was entering a mind. But it was not one mind. It was many. It was countless. Every voice of every human who has ever lived, standing together. They carry all of them inside. When one falls, another rises, and another, and another. You cannot break them because they are never alone. The words cut through the silence like a blade. Some council members shifted in their seats, their faces pale. Others shook their heads, refusing to believe. The telepath's voice grew louder, her fear spilling over. Do you not see? We thought them weak because their flesh is fragile, because their years are short. But inside they are stronger than all of us. I walked into their darkness, and the darkness swallowed me whole. And in that darkness, I saw fire that will never go out. Her words sent shivers through the hall. The healers tried to lay her back down, but she fought them, desperate to be heard. You call them primitive. But they will outlast us. They will outlast everything. They do not fear death. They welcome it, they learn from it, and they rise stronger. I touched one, only one, and I will never be whole again. Her eyes locked onto the council leader. Do not make this mistake. Do not provoke them. If one of them can do this, imagine what will happen when their armies come. Imagine what will happen when they all stand together. The chamber erupted in whispers once more, fear spreading like fire. Some called her words madness. Others clutched their robes as if to shield themselves. The human remained still, his expression unchanged. He did not deny her words. He did not need to. The silence of his presence was louder than her scream. The council leader raised his voice, trying to regain control. Enough. She is broken. Her mind is shattered. We cannot trust what she says. But his voice wavered, and all could hear it. The telepath collapsed back against the stretcher, her strength gone. Her last words were a whisper that still reached every corner of the chamber. They are endless. The human slowly opened his eyes, calm and cold. His gaze swept across the chamber, and every alien who met it felt their breath catch. He said nothing, but they all understood. The council had tried to measure him. Instead, they had measured themselves, and found their courage small. The silence in the chamber felt like a heavy weight pressing down on every being present. The aliens shifted uncomfortably in their seats, their eyes darting between the collapsed telepath and the human who stood unmoving in the center. For so long he had been silent, a figure of mystery, a question that none of them could answer. But now, at last, he moved. The human's head lifted slowly, his gaze sweeping across the countless faces staring down at him. His eyes were calm, steady, yet in that calmness there was something that unsettled the crowd even more than anger or fear ever could. When he finally spoke, his voice was low but carried to every corner of the hall. You wanted to know what lies inside us, he said. You thought it would be simple. You thought you could read us, weigh us, control us. But you do not understand what we are. His words echoed, simple but sharp. The aliens leaned forward, listening, afraid of missing even one syllable. We are born fragile. Our bodies break. Our lives are short. The universe tests us every day with hunger, with war, with loss. And every time, we learn. We carry the scars of those who came before us, and we make them part of who we are. That is why your telepath screamed. She did not see one man. She saw all of us. She saw the weight of our history. She saw the fire that keeps us alive. The council leader shifted in his seat, his face pale but his voice still trying to hold authority. Are you threatening us, human? The human's lips curved into something that was not quite a smile. No. I am warning you. Threats are for those who think they hold power. I do not need to threaten you. I only need to remind you that we are not what you believe. We do not bow to fear. We do not break under pain. And when one of us falls, another takes their place. Always. The words sank deep into the chamber, chilling the air. One of the younger council members whispered, "If this is true, then what chance do we have if they rise against us?" The human heard, and his gaze turned toward the young one. It is not about chance. It is about choice. You chose to bring me here. You chose to pry into my mind. You chose to see us as less. But understand this, every time someone underestimates us, it becomes their mistake, not ours. The silence was so complete now that even the hum of the energy conduits above the chamber seemed louder. The human stepped forward, his movements slow and deliberate. The guards tensed, their weapons ready, but he ignored them. He stood beneath the towering council seats and spoke again, his voice steady. Do not think of me as one man. Think of me as the echo of billions. When you look at me, you are looking at every human who has ever fought, every human who has ever endured, every human who has refused to surrender. That is what you felt in your telepath scream. That is what you fear now. The council leader clenched his fists, but his eyes betrayed the fear he could not hide. The other council members whispered among themselves, their voices rising and falling like waves of panic. The human let the silence return one last time before he spoke again. You wanted to see inside a human mind. Now you have. And I promise you this, what you saw was only the beginning. His words hung in the air, heavy and undeniable. The chamber trembled with unease. The words of the human lingered like an echo that would not fade, and no alien present dared to speak first. The silence grew unbearable, as though the very walls of the council chamber held their breath. At last, the council leader rose to his feet. His robes, usually a symbol of power, seemed smaller now, as though authority itself had been shaken. He stared down at the human with eyes that carried both fear and pride, but his voice trembled when he spoke. You stand before the greatest alliance of species in this galaxy, he declared, though the firmness in his tone was thin. You speak of fire and endurance, but what are you without control? What are you without order? You are dangerous. The human looked up at him, his face calm, his eyes sharp as steel. Dangerous? Yes. But not because we seek to destroy. We are dangerous because we refuse to kneel. We are dangerous because no chain has ever held us for long. And we are dangerous because we rise every time someone tries to bury us. Gasps rippled through the council chamber. The guards held their weapons tighter, but their hands shook. The leader opened his mouth to respond, but another voice interrupted. It came from one of the oldest council members, a figure draped in silver, whose species had watched empires rise and fall. His voice was slow, measured, but filled with a truth none could ignore. He is right, the elder said. I felt it too when the telepath screamed. This is not one mind. This is a storm of countless voices. If we make enemies of them, we invite a war we cannot win. We will not face one man, we will face all of them. Murmurs filled the chamber, some angry, some afraid, some uncertain. The human stood still, watching, not rushing their decision. He did not plead. He did not beg. His silence was its own weapon. Finally, the council leader's voice returned, weaker than before. Then what are we to do with you, human? The human took a step forward, and his words struck like thunder. You will let me walk out of here. And you will remember what happened today. You will remember the scream of your telepath, the fear in your own hearts, and the truth that can no longer be hidden. Humanity is coming. Not to beg. Not to bow. But to stand. And when we stand, we will not stand alone. The chamber fell into silence once again. Not one dared to challenge him. The weight of his presence was too heavy, the memory of the telepath's collapse too raw. Slowly, deliberately, the human turned and walked toward the great doors of the chamber. The guards moved aside without being ordered. Their weapons lowered, their courage broken. The massive doors opened with a hiss of energy, and he stepped out into the cold corridors beyond. Behind him, the whispers of the council began anew, but none dared to call him back. None dared to test him again. The last sound that carried through the chamber was the faint, shaking voice of the broken telepath. From her stretcher, she whispered words that made the air grow colder still. They are endless. And with that, the human was gone, leaving the council in silence, their fear greater than any sentence or punishment they could have given.